Hey, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to my YouTube live, you guys. I really appreciate you guys joining me. Today's topic that I want to talk about, you guys, is the ego. The ego and the stories that the ego feeds you and creates and makes up inside of your head and just causes so much suffering, so much pain inside of your life. And it's just so crazy how, before, when I would think about ego, I would think about, oh, people are thinking that I'm cocky if I think that I'm being egotistical about my confidence and how confident I am. But then I realized, I'm like, the way the ego can creep up on you and really affect you and your mental health and your emotional health, in so much different areas inside of your life without us not even catching on. I said, man, when I started to do the inner work and I started to realize at the end of the day, all these stories that we create inside of our head that actually causes so much suffering, so much pain, it's all driven from the ego. And when I started to understand my intuition and started to understand what is the ego and doing the shadow work and really doing the self development work on myself, I started to realize how much a lot of my thoughts, a lot of my actions and my reactions to certain things were ego driven, right? Was like stories that I was clinging onto of the past or clinging onto of a person that that was ego driven, right? I'll give you guys a perfect example because whatever I like to talk about on my YouTube channel, it always has to do with something that I have experienced, I have went through inside of life. So then that way you guys can know that whatever I'm talking about, I have experienced it. I am knowledgeable about it. So I'm not talking shit out my ass, basically. So when I talk about the ego, right? I noticed with myself when I got out of a narcissistic relationship, I clinged on to this story of this person, right? That even though they put me through so much pain, even though they were so disrespectful, hurtful, vindictive, and they did all these things to me, I would hurt, but then I would cling on to this story of this person that they're they're such a good person. They do this for this person. Everybody perceives them as this person being such a good person and this and this and that. So it's just like I clinged on, my ego was clinging on to a story of the good times, right? Of this person. And my ego was constantly feeding me on this story of the good things about this person, but not the bad things. Because our ego always wants to try to protect us, even though it's actually hurting us. It's trying to protect us, right? It's trying to protect us from getting hurt, but it is hurting us in the long run. Because at the end of the day, if we're clinging on to that story, we're holding on to that story, it's causing so much suffering and pain, right? Because it's not allowing us to let go. It's not allowing us to be free from that person, from that situation, from our past, right? So if you're constantly clinging onto a story of a person or clinging onto that story of a person or the past or the situation, it you're constantly living in just being stagnant inside of your life and not being able to open open your heart, open your mind, open your emotions to new beginnings and new things because you're constantly clinging on to that story. When I started to realize that about myself, it's just almost like, man, my mind is so consumed, just filled with all these thoughts and all these emotions of clinging on to a story, right? And not letting myself let go of that story. I love how when you educate yourself about certain things, just wanting to know more about yourself and learn more about yourself, when you do take the time to invest into yourself to learn why you are the way you are, why you think the way you think, why do you have certain emotions that are consistent. When you see that there's a consistency inside of your life that is toxic, that's not not allowing you to grow, not allowing you to evolve from getting out of depression, getting out of being having anxiety attacks, getting out of fear. when you realize that there's a consistent pattern that's going on inside of your life, and you're not being able to free yourself from that negative pattern, it's time to wake up. Shake yourself and wake up. Say that it's time to wake up and understand more of myself, right? It's so crazy how when certain situations happen inside of our life, you lose your job, you're constantly beating yourself up, asking yourself the wrong questions. Man, why did I lose my job? Why did this happen to me? Why did they not see my value at that job? This, or you lose a toxic person inside of your life, right? And again, your ego is gonna always cling on to, man, I treated them so good. Why did they leave me? Why don't they see my value? Man, I'm feeding off of a story that you need an explanation why that person left you. If you were to dig deep and really understand, right, from your intuition down inside of you, that person was not good, that person was toxic, that person was treating you like shit, that person was disrespecting you. Same thing with that job. They didn't see your value, they didn't see your worth, they weren't paying you for your worth, they weren't. So it's like, for face value, if you really want to understand, like, let go of that story that your ego is clinging onto, and really dig deep and listen to your intuition, because your intuition is always telling you, right, that this person's not good for you. I'm meant more for this job that I'm at. They don't deserve this, the time and the energy that I'm investing into them, right? Your intuition, if dig deep down, is telling you, right? Is always talking to you, is always telling you what it is. But then it's your ego trying to say no, right? No, this person's this way. This job is this way. They need me. They need me. That person who's treating you like shit, they're gonna see my value, they're gonna regret leaving me, they're gonna see this. And but then it's just like you're still clinging on to a story, right? For such a long time I was clinging onto a story. And why did my ex leave? Like, why didn't he see my value? Why didn't he treat me good? Or the clinging on to, like, we had such good times. But then the bad weighed out more than the good. But my ego was just clinging on to the good, and was just reminding me of this story of how I was so good to this person and we had good times. Why would they leave? Why would they not see my value? Why would they not? And I kept clinging on to this story inside of my head of this person, right? And when I started to realize, at the end of the day, it was causing me so much suffering. It was causing me so much anxiety. It was causing me so much depression. It was causing me, you know, so much fear inside of me to move forward, because I was constantly stuck on to that story. It made me finally open up my eyes to say that story that my ego is clinging onto is causing me more suffering and more pain. And if I constantly keep clinging onto that story, that's constantly going to be causing me suffer and have pain, right? And be living in anxiety, be living in fear, be living in depression and frustration. So once you can see that your ego is creating these stories inside of your life that you're clinging onto, that if you don't release those stories, you're constantly going to live in suffering. You're constantly going to live in pain. Because a lot of times, the stories that we created in our head from our ego, it's from the past, or it hasn't even happened yet. Or we think and we make these assumptions and we create these ego driven stories that this person's doing this or that person's doing that. And we're fixating on, again, the story that's causing us depression, fear, anxiety, anger, frustration, all these low vibrational feelings that are consuming us, that to suffer, to be frustrated inside of our life, to not be happy, to not feel complete, to not feel whole. So if you constantly keep sticking onto that story, it you just look at it this way: sticking onto a story and clinging onto a person or clinging onto the past or whatever the case may be. When it comes to clinging onto a story, your equals suffering, equals pain, equals never being able to move forward. That you're just staying stagnant in those old patterns, emotions that are no longer serving you anymore. And it came to a point where I came to realize that at the end of the day, in order for me to grow, in order for me to evolve, in order for me to move forward in life, it's me understanding that I need to let go. I don't know if you're a believer of God. I'm a believer in God, and they say let go and let God. Let go and let God. At the end of the day, we came on this earth to experience all what life has to give us, to go through different challenges, to go through different chapters, to meet new people, to experience new things, to learn lessons and evolve and become a better version of ourselves. And half of the time, the things that we experience that we're clinging on to, it was meant to just come through as a chapter for us to learn a certain lesson and to take that to grow, to evolve, to become a better version of ourselves and be able to move into a better chapter, right? Meeting better people, opening better doors, opening better opportunities, right? That's why when you lose a job, you always end up finding another job with that pays you probably more, that treats you better, that values you. And it's the same thing, it comes with a relationship, right? When you lose that person, that toxic person that was no good for you, or that person who disrespected you or didn't treat you good, didn't see your value, once you start to work on yourself and see your value and start loving yourself, and they show you what that does is that person comes into your life and they show you the things that you were neglecting, the things that you weren't seeing value in yourself. And they come to open your eyes up, open your mind up to see these things that you need to work on, that you need to dig deeper in, so that you can grow and evolve and open doors to meet better people to come through your life, who are going to value you more, who's going to see your self-worth, who's going to respect you, who's going to treat you good, right? Because at the end of the day, that person that left your life, they came to open your eyes up and open your mind up and open your heart up to see certain things that you weren't seeing for yourself, things that you weren't doing for yourself. Because at the end of the day, people are going to come through your lives and treat you the way you treat yourself. People mirror the way you are inside, whether you like to admit it or not. So at the end of the day, but our ego will stop us from seeing these things, right? Because our ego creates these stories that hold us back from seeing these things, because our ego wants to protect us from getting hurt. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's the times when you're at rock bottom and you're feeling the shittiest, that you're hurting the most, and you feel like, man, you're feeling defeated, you're feeling depleted. Those are the times that pain brings you out to evolve, to look in the mirror, to dig deep, to understand things that you need to heal, things that you need to work on, things that you need to go through and feel in order for you to become the best version of yourself, in order for you to open that new door, that new chapter into a better and bigger beginning, right? So that you don't have to keep going through the same shit inside of your life over and over and over and over and over again, playing your life like a broken record. That's why sometimes we get into these relationships. We meet one toxic relationship, and then we meet another person who's a narcissistic, that has narcissistic traits, or another person who's abusive mentally, emotionally, another person who's a cheater, or we get into another job, right, that don't value us, or we get into another job, we're working the same hours for the same pay and doing the same, just living in this rat race, right? And constantly living in a dirty cycle that's not helping us evolve, because our ego is creating these stories inside of our head that we don't want to feel that pain, that's trying to protect us from the pain. But sometimes in life, like I said, you need to dig deep and feel those emotional pains in order for you to grow, in order for you to evolve, right? But sometimes, again, clinging to that story is you're suffering and you're feeling pain, but it's a stagnant pain. It's a stagnant emotion that's not allowing you to go nowhere. You're constantly just going in the same emotion, the same cycle, and not being able to grow and evolve, right? In If you just really understand that this ego that you're feeling and the stories you're creating from your ego, that there's a learning lesson in them, to take that learning lesson and then say to myself, you know what? I'm not clinging on to this story anymore. I'm not clinging on to this person. I'm not clinging on to the past. I'm not clinging on to this situation that hurt me or brought me through a traumatizing experience. I'm ready to understand what was the learning lesson in it and now grow and evolve and let it go. Release it and let it go. And start playing that over and over in your head, that releasing that story now is allowing me to open my mind up and open my heart up to new beginnings, to new chapters, to new things to come in my life, because I'm no longer clinging on to a person, place, or thing or story that no longer serves me. It played its part. It came through my life. It taught me something really good about myself. Now it's time for me to move forward. Let that story go, close that chapter, close that door, and move forward. Right. And that's why I think that it's so important to really start digging deep and understanding what stories is your ego creating for you in your life, right? I know for me, it was creating a bunch of stories about my ex that wasn't true, but I just didn't want to feel the pain. I just didn't want to come to the realization that he he had his own traumatizing experiences inside of his life that made him the way how he is, and that's not my fault, right? But at the end of the day, he taught me a lot, and I'm so grateful that he taught me so much about myself. He taught me that I had codependency issues. He taught me that I needed to love myself more. He taught me that I needed, how can I have self-respect for my body, have self-respect for myself in general. He taught me so much about myself, to love myself more, right? So at the same time, you guys, there's great lessons to be learned from the pain or from those stories that you're clinging onto. But at the same time, it's time to let go. It's time to say, I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to move onward and forward and grow into a better version of myself, because I know I am worthy of greatness. I know that I'm worthy of better inside of my life. And me clinging on to these stories or this person is not helping me anymore. It's causing way too much suffering. It's causing me anxiety. It's causing me frustration. It's causing me stress. It's time to let go and let God, right? And wise up and rise up. So it's time to wise up and rise up and learn from that lesson and that experience and let go of that story, and just really say to yourself, I'm ready to move forward. And once you can realize that story that's been playing in your head over and over and over again about that person, about that situation, about that place, or whatever the case may be, that's really breaking you down, then you can really free yourself and say, I'm ready to move forward. And that's when you can open the doors to new beginnings and new people to come inside of your life that will see your value, that will treat you better, and just work out for you in every way possible, right? Into new beginnings. So thank you so much for hopping on with this YouTube video and watching this YouTube channel. I really appreciate the support, right? I love sharing, these great things that I'm learning through my spiritual awakening and my journey, that I can help with anybody out there, right? So please go check out, you guys, my podcast. It's called Wise Up, Rise Up. It's on Spotify, it's on Anchor. I am going to be posting up podcasts on there every Thursday, so you can look out for that. And then my YouTube videos, I'll be posting them up whenever I can. I'm going to be very vigorous on posting up on YouTube, because I feel like, there's so much knowledge that can be shared through my spiritual awakening and my journey that can help so many people out there, you guys. So thanks again for watching. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. Let me know what your thoughts are. Leave a comment. Tell me if any of this resonated with you or if it helped you in any sort of way. away. I'd love to hear your comment. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys again next time.